Oh, hi, Mark. Good evening, everyone. It is that time again.
That's not fair.
I got Yakko Pinky stuck in my head right about now. You're welcome, all. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. The Vlogcast comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. The Vlogcast started as a combination of spite and the Streisand effect because Dallin and Joey and me, we got riling on news stories that we're passing over tonight so we can do it next week because part of this is to follow through with the old adage, sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. I'm your main host. I'm known as Shujin Triple all over the place. You can find me pretty much anywhere under that, Shujin. You can even find me on Jake for Wharton show every once in a while. Not this week because he apparently had other people to talk to. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Not holding a grudge or nothing. I'm also thirsty. Whatever. Let me go ahead and introduce you to everybody because we got stuff that is hanging over our heads, and I get to preview part of it for you. Top left-hand corner of North America, where is the moon still red for you out there, by the way, Dallin?
Oh, very much. So is the sun.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
No, it's not the second coming, folks.
No, it's not. It's just the fact that British California is on fire.
For those of you that don't understand it, look at the freaking map.
Yeah, look at everything on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And
West
then
Coast
ask yourself, why in the hell would you want to live there?
It's fake news.
Yeah,
Climate change is fake news.
We'll get there.
Okay, right now at this point, I don't give two shits about any kind of climate change. The fact is, to quote Henry Rollins, like, right now the evening news is basically the shit is on fire show. Okay, that right now is a fact. The shit is on fire.
All of it.
Yeah, all this shit is
all
on
the
fire.
things are burning.
Yes, everything is burning.
Except for the one thing that should be burning, a particular hotel.
Yeah.
With nobody in it, of course.
Yeah.
Nobody in it.
But sort of going to the topic that we're going to be looking at next week, I can only say this. We as a group right now could very easily disassemble this thing and probably take a very large poke at it with no problem. But there is something utterly cathartic about bringing in the howitzer to blow up the gopher hole. Am I right?
Just ask Bill Murray.
Yeah,
exactly.
Plastic.
Yes.
I was laughing my butt off when I saw that.
Yes, we are waiting for our heretic Bill Murray to tackle that particular gopher.
If you want to kill the rodent, you must think like the rodent.
We'll get there. We'll get there. From south and just a little bit to the right of Dallin, however, in the Midwest of the U.S. Good evening, Bridget.
Good evening.
You holding up pretty good right now, you said, yeah?
Oh, I do who what?
You're holding up pretty well right now, you said.
Considering, yeah.
It's the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
From south of me over into Pittsburgh. Good morning, Joey.
Yeah, what's so good about it?
You're alive, and there is no extinction level event going on.
Again, I ask you, what's so good about it?
I'm going to use a meme right about now. He's not wrong. And from just outside of, yeah, they've still got jobs. We'll see how long that lasts. Good morning, Unrenewed Tech.
It's morning, but I'm gonna have to take a rain check on the whole good part.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, because if tensions get much higher, I live right down the street from a nuclear power plant on one side of me and a military base on the other.
Yeah.
It would not end well for me if something worldwide were to occur. I mean, there'd be no point in running.
Yeah, that's true. Where are you going to go?
I have two ways out. Both of them are blocked. Both are targets.
do what
You
do
know,
what I'm planning on doing. Just hijack a boat and go to the middle of the international line. And
You can't get out from here in that respect.
well, whose fault is that?
All I know is I got a bottle of rum over there, and I would definitely do my damnedest to make sure that that thing was gone.
Shujin, to answer your question, Eisenhower.
Again, I state for the record, it's not wrong.
I blame Eisenhower for the entirety of I-95 and really all the other I's thereof. But Tech, in that kind of situation, all you got to do is make sure you've got your graham crackers, your marshmallows, and your Hershey bar, and you're set. And personally, I think the world could use a little bit of extinction level mix-up right now.
By the way, I'd like to say good morning to Stephanie, Felis, and Shauna, who are currently on our live chat.
Morning.
Yes.
From the YouTube channel.
Yes.
And Felis, that you're right. Any day I wake up above ground is a good day, especially when you consider how many people used to be buried alive back in the day.
There's a reason why they call it awake, but you can look that up for yourself. Anyway,
I spent a good portion of my life underground, and it was some of the best times I ever had.
we're not doing Minecraft anymore. We've been through this.
And remember, don't
Actually,
mine at night.
No,
Yeah.
no, you don't understand. I wasn't playing Minecraft. I was playing Survivor, the real game.
Yeah, I know. And see, I can get away with saying that because I just started a new Feed the Beast round because yeah, I wanted to update all the magic stuff, and the only way that I could do that was to.
I am a little mad about Microsoft right now, though, or Mojang. I'm not sure who's to blame.
What is that?
I had to buy my way back into Minecraft.
Oh,
My account was so old that I had not migrated it in time, and your account doesn't exist anymore. Oh, but you can't use the same username you had before.
Yeah. See, there's a.
You see, this is what happens when database migrations go horribly wrong.
All of them?
No, only the ones that are under IIS.
Wrong application, but okay.
Yeah, I'm going. See, I'm going with that because
That would be the International Incompetence Station.
Sure. Yeah. Close enough. Tech, again, he's not wrong.
You're right.
That's gonna be that. Somehow, I get the funny feeling that's the way it's gonna be tonight. That's the way it's gonna feel. Anyway,
What, that you're right?
no,
You should be happy.
well. See, now I got music running through my head. I appreciate it. Anyway, of course, as always, everybody who's watching live, thank you very much. We do appreciate it. And please continue to go ahead and typity and let us know how you feel about stuff. Because, yeah, next week, your fingers are going to get a workout. Consider tonight a dress rehearsal. I will go ahead and I will say, before I go ahead and get everything rolling for tonight, that I decided to intentionally leave this story out of Pennsylvania out of tonight's show. Partly because it's too new. I don't want to go half-cocked on this thing. I want to make sure that a little bit more time has had for a little more investigative work. And truth be told, I don't want Heretic Woman to miss out on this opportunity. So don't worry, it's coming next week. Oh yes, it will be coming next week.
Yeah. And honestly, all I can think of is, just as she's introduced next week.
Oh yeah.
In the back of my head is going to be playing this one particular scene from Star Wars where they went commence primary ignition.
Yep.
And then when we get into the topic, you may fire when ready.
Yep. It's going to be, atomic batteries to power.
Turbines to speed.
Oh yeah, you know what? Go right ahead. Lincoln Futura out the door. Anyway. So that's one
okay.
of the
Sorry. When you said Futura, I'm like, wait a minute. Oh no, that's Fortune I'm thinking of. Never mind.
It's a whole other. That's
Yes,
a whole other thing.
completely unrelated.
It's quite so much. So, yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna open us up for tonight's show, and I will tell you that if you did look through the show notes and everything in the links for the show, you probably saw something that you kind of wondered, what? Really? I know, but trust me, there's a reason. So with 5 minutes on the clock, your 5-minute freestyle starts right now. The video that I'm making reference to is called Raze This Barn, and it's one of the pieces of music from My Little Pony. Yes, that My Little Pony. And that was going through my head earlier as I was trying to piece together what we're going to talk about. Yeah, I waited until today. Raze This Barn. You may have noticed that it's actually spelled wrong, or so some people would think. Far as I'm concerned with what happened in Pennsylvania, like I said, a little bit of a preview. Far as I'm concerned, raze it to the ground. R-A-Z-E, burn it, dismember it, completely obliterate it, crater it off the face of the planet. There are a lot of times where you can say something has outlived its usefulness. And brother, organized religion has outlived its usefulness. Well outlived at this point. Yeah, once upon a time, there is something that could be, there's an argument that could be made that, once upon a time, it was at least something resembling law and order, even if it wasn't exactly what one would call just and moral. And then they went ahead and they sucked up whatever qualified as money or bartering power. So they had the ability of organizing paperwork and fostering the arts. Was it for a good cause? No, not really. They kept records on births and deaths and that kind of thing. So, there was something to be said for it, because we can go looking back through all those old records and find out where people immigrated from back in the old days, when before you had a city, you had a town. Before you had a town, you had a village. Before you had a village, in a lot of places you had a parish. And that's where all the paperwork was stored. So there are a number of people who come from immigrant families all over the world where they can't trace themselves back too much further because, well, the paper is all burned down in the, when the only place where the paperwork was kept burned to the ground because, lightning hit the structure. Man. Freaking Thor getting his heart on, But it's time. It's well past time. It's long past time. Europe has already gone to be mostly secular. As a generality, it's kind of like, admittedly, I'm pulling a number out of my butt at the moment. But if you go with most of Europe at this point, I think it averages out to roughly 75%. Roughly, are non-religious, or at the very least, not organized religious. They are the nuns. Whereas here in the U.S., it's most definitely the opposite. And what have we got for it over here? We got people who justify keeping slaves and not. Justifying beating kids and not. running roughshod over their spouse or not. Comes down to this. When an organization systemically brings harm to society, the answer is clear. There's no debate. There's no second guessing it. It simply is a statement of truth and being. The Catholic barn needs to simply go away. Completely, utterly, and irrevocably. And before you go ahead and try to change my mind, there are 1,000 people that we know of in Pennsylvania that you should try to convince first. It's one state out of 50. How many are we going to know about tomorrow? It's episode 223 on the docket, Your Honor. Penalty, unsportsmanlike conduct. Sorry, let me do this correctly. Penalty on the play, unsportsmanlike conduct. I like being able to have that echo thing. See, you don't even have to do that in post now, because the you know, we've run into the problem over the last couple of years where it seems like, and this is not just politics here in the U.S., where people are simply one side or another, the orange and the green, and they are just, if you ain't with me, you against me, and screw y'all, and we're just going to go ahead and kill everybody until there's nobody left to argue with. Where once upon a time, it used to be, we've got a problem. You think it needs to be solved this way. I think it needs to be solved this way. Let's discuss. And then come up with a solution that may not be the best of all worlds, but at least isn't the worst of them either. Yep. So we're going to go through a lot of that because a lot of it is happening here in my home country, but I keep trying to make sure that we're not just talking about my country. This is something that's been going on a little bit too much all over the place. With Heretic Woman not being here, however, the only update that I've got for you guys on Rafe Badawi is, well, as I mentioned last week, about his sister having been picked up and a number of other female activists, which are getting the short end of the shaft right now, which is just annoying. And of course, the pissing match between Canada and Saudi Arabia, which, again, we kind of talked a little about last week. And, well, yeah, I don't get it. Unfortunately, however, we don't have any new news other than what's still out there in the news cycle. So as of the recording of tonight's show, this is now 6 years, 2 months, 3 days since Rafe Badawi was unjustly incarcerated for thought crime. Our hopes and our thoughts are still with you and your family. We're still waiting and we're still hoping. So let's start off with the nice and fun way to slide into this whole thing. Bridget, you remember the expression, the commercial? Do you remember when things used to be easier back then? Pepperidge Farms remembers.
Oh, that's a big meme on Reddit.
Yeah.
You remember when horsepower actually meant something? Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what I was basically channeling when I was trying to describe how we're going to end up talking about this. I remember when it, admittedly, I was not really political, in my high school years. I kind of saw what was going on, but I did not follow a lot because I was not taught to follow a lot. But I can still remember when it used to be Republicans have got one idea as to how things are supposed to work. Democrats have got a different idea as to how things are supposed to work. Libertarians have their own. Green, conservative, shoot, who the hell was it that Ralph Nader
He just ran independent.
Independent. Okay, everybody's got their own way of how to do stuff, but everybody came together to the table and said, okay, let's figure out what are our plans, how would they work, how can they work, will they work better, and at least hashed it out and said, when all was said and done, they came together and said, okay, we hashed out a deal. This works out good. This works out good. It may not be the best, but it sure as hell ain't the worst. We're not going to end up in a radioactive dust bowl when all is said and done.
Yeah.
But, before we get done with tonight, I really want to get through the question of, is this a pipe dream to even consider that? Try to get back to that. Are we past that? Because spoilers, I sure as hell hope not.
My head is really spinning into a bit of a complex scenario about this. So bear with me.
Not a worry.
All right. At least 3 of us on this panel have been old enough to see a couple of generations go through the educational system over the years. We've seen perhaps ourselves, perhaps our children, and in some cases, our grandchildren are starting to go through it as well. Again, I'm just throwing it out there. The fact is, a few of us have a few miles on the odometer to have seen the world change. And here's my thought. So you're talking about, remember when there was validity to the word discourse?
Yes.
Where, like you said, people of differing opinions could come together, plead their cases. Well, okay, state their cases and realize that, okay, I'm going into this with an open mind. My mama taught me to respect my peers. Society has taught me to, keep a sense of decorum, and that anger solves nothing. Now, what I've noticed is the educational system has degraded a lot. I mean, funding is cut, schools are gutted, religious schools are becoming more popular because they've got the money. And as a result of that, they've also got the influence because, they run the town. I would dare say that some preachers have more power than the mayors of some towns.
I'd agree with that statement.
Yeah, I couldn't give you any evidence for it, but it's just it's a sentiment that I'm starting to get. And the trouble is, nobody really sees it because, I graduated high school and my kid is going through the same high school I did, so they should be getting the same level of education, right? Nah, not necessarily. 3/4 of my teachers in high school, and actually a few of them from my college, are probably dead. Just time waits for no one, So you've got a degradation of the educational system. You've got, oh God, I'm going to sound like a conservative when I say this, but you've also got a degradation of the family unit. And what I mean by that is, a home. Shujin, you've done a great job raising TT. I make no bones about that. You've done well despite a rather hellish track you've had to go through. Tech, admittedly, I've never met your kids, so I couldn't say, but I'd like to think that you're a pretty level-headed parent yourself. But there are
called well-grounded is the phrase that.
And
no,
I'm
okay.
just the strange uncle.
Yeah, well, I've been called that too. But I think there is a growing lack of that. Okay, not a nuclear family, but a sense of family. Where kids can come home and feel loved, and that their kids are engaged with their parent or parents, depending on the situation.
I'm sorry. Hold on to that one second. I'm sorry, Tech. I have to ask. Being that you've got the technical side and the Jewish side in you and in your family and such,
Yep.
For bar mitzvah, is the kid's challenge going to be to set up a 50 wire SCSI cable by hand? Is that what his way of transitioning to adulthood is going to be for you?
Well, the funny part is there's not going to be a bar mitzvah because I'm an atheist.
You know,
Just play along.
God damn it, man! Seriously, a 50 pin, a 50 wire. You know what? Fuck. You know what? Screw it. Just
Anyways,
anyways.
so you've got you've got the gutting of the educational system. You've got a degradation of the sense of family, where that the kid is raised to keep that level head, to be well grounded.
Degradation of sense of humor sometimes. You know?
Well, that too. But the thing is, it's getting to the point nowadays, and of course, you've got the economy. You know, now everybody says, "Well, the economy is doing great right now." Yeah, tell that to any Steak and Shake employee that you run across.
God damn fluoridation of our precious bodily fluids.
Well, whatever the case, there are a lot of factors that are basically leading to the point where society is getting angry. They're frustrated. They're pissed off because the so-called American dream isn't happening, in many cases, no matter how hard some people work. They just can't get ahead, and it's grinding them. So discourse kind of goes out the window now because, well, for one thing, people haven't been raised to do the whole respect your peers, hold your anger in. It's now rage mob this and anger mob that. And political parties are seeing this, and they're actually seeing how effective it is, because you get 5, 10, 15,000 people marching down the streets angry AF at whatever, that's going to make quite a political statement. So as long as that anger is considered a resource for people who want to drive a certain narrative, I think you're going to be clawing your way back to that whole sense of decorum that you're talking about before. I'm not saying we can't get there, but we've got a long way to go. And there's a lot of stuff. It's a tapestry, and the tapestry has been frayed, and now it's got to be rewoven, and it's going to take a very, very long time. I'd say quite a few generations, provided we find a starting point, which I don't think we found yet. Now that I've completely blown away the first half hour of the show.
No, you open up an interesting piece that this is not just the mob rule thing, which, don't get me wrong, there is something to be said for mob rule going ahead and saying, collectively we say this is bad, because societally speaking, that's kind of what society is.
That's why we don't have slavery in this country.
Yeah, but
because our society deemed that it's wrong, regardless of what label you want to put on it. Society deemed that, not religion, because religion says that, hey, slavery is okay as long as you follow these guidelines. It's like, no, owning another human being and doing that to them is wrong. Yeah,
and society decided that morally. There was a distaste for it because we are naturally compassionate creatures.
In fact, half of this country felt so strongly about it, we had a war over it.
Yep.
Yeah. But was that war, okay, coming at this from, the fact that I don't live there, was the South throwing the Bible up? Or was it the plantation owners realizing that, wait a minute, if I get rid of my slaves, I stop making the kind of money I do, because then I actually have to pay my workers?
Oh, can I answer this one?
Please do. Please do.
Okay.
Go for it.
Yes.
Because I remember studying it.
The answer is yes. The southern states wrote up their own constitution with their own thing that literally said in there that we want to keep our slaves because we are these slave-owning states and we want to keep our sovereign rights. It's in the Confederate I forget what
Whatever they're.
okay, so
It was the Articles of Confederacy.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So
and the Bible was referenced as
several times.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it all came down to now here's where it gets to be interesting, because not only was that in there for the religious aspect, for the what is now a moral no of slavery, but it was framed for the populace as the northern states are now telling us what to do.
Yeah.
It wasn't that we are breaking away. It was they're trying to impose on us, and we are not having that, even though we are supposed to be part of this one big country. And oh, look at that. We'll just go ahead and make our own with blackjack and hookers. And yeah, that didn't go over too well.
Yeah.
If they just stuck with the blackjack and hookers, it probably would have gone fine.
It would have been perfectly fine. I mean, it works out perfectly well out there in Arizona.
Yeah, and California would have been awesome, despite the fires.
That's true. That's true. But now, see, the problem that I'm seeing with this, and anybody else wants to pop on this also, sociologically speaking. Wow, holy shit! I said sociologically. Damn it! I screwed it up on myself.
Hey, at least you got your one.
I got my one.
Yeah.
You got your one. You got your one.
Coffee, maybe?
I don't have any coffee right now. I have Tang. I had coffee earlier.
Yeah, this, ladies and gentlemen, is coffee, and it's just about done.
Perfectly fine. See, I was able to get irrevocably out correctly. Deleterious, I can say.
Wow.
But, oh yeah, I know. I can actually say these things. But yeah, me.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
No, it's supposed to be backwards. That's docious-fragicalorupus. Screw y'all. I can do it.
You and my sister.
I have a finger for you people with all that Nevada. Phyllis is writing. It's from Nevada. You know what?
Remember, it's Hawaii.
Then last week, Venice. It's a never mind. It's an old story. Anyway, so sociologically speaking, got it that time.
Scatologically speaking, what?
Shut up.
It's funny you should say it that way, because there is a certain level of I can't think of any other way to put it. It's going to sound stupid and it's going to sound weird saying it this way, but trust me when I think that you guys will get it. There's a certain level of bullshitistry that happens when you go ahead and you say, this is why something is happening to us that's bad. And you frame it a certain way that people are willing to buy into it because of said anger.
Mm-hmm.
The southern states framed it for themselves as we got our asses kicked because the North came in and they imposed their martial rule on us. I'm highly paraphrasing, but you get the idea. So now the southern states now believe that they've got the rebel thing going on because we're the ones trying to stick up for ourselves against everybody else and stick it to the man because you didn't want to go by the rules that you agreed to go by and you got your asses handed for you. Yeah. So that's a thing.
Well, they still refer to it as the Northern War of Aggression.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's a lot of that, and it's a lot of if social media existed back then, no, I think the end of that war, it also would have been every state in the South would have been hashtagging not my government or not my country. And they're still doing it to this day. Which I find this ironic.
Don't you think?
Yeah, shut up. Actually, guys, help me out here. From Carter to now, your presidents,
Okay.
where are the majority of them coming from? Because I think the Bushes are from Texas. Clinton was from Arkansas.
Right.
Okay, Obama was from Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Trump is from Oompa Loompa land. I know that.
Is my home city of New
New
York.
York.
Yeah. But I also think about, I guess what I'm thinking about is that.
Oh, and Reagan was California.
Okay. So, yeah, that one kind of makes. You see, it was one thing I always found, again, kind of ironic here, is that, you know, we have this one province, this very large, very whiny province called Quebec, who's really only known for smoked meat and poutine, and language laws that, you know, would give Saudi Arabia a boner. A very large number of our prime ministers who are supposed to govern the entire country have come from that province. So I was trying to find if there was a correlation, because, you know, if the South is constantly, you know, like, oh, this ain't my country, it was a Northern War of aggression, then how come the majority of the presidents in the past, I don't know, 20 to 30 years have come from the South? So you'd think if they did come from the South, that they would be, you know, I don't know, giving the nod to the South, maybe helping them out a little bit more than they do. But you still got, well, you still call them the flyover states. You know, there are still states there that have less population than my entire, you know,
your city.
Yeah. There's less population in a state than there is in the city I live in. So, you know, what have you guys done for those states lately? And you notice that a lot of those states are red?
Yep.
That's your answer. Because you had presidencies, and where did they give a shit the most? California, New York, like basically the coastal cities, because that's where the money was. That's where the commerce was happening. That, you know, because you got the docks, you got the trade, you got this, you got that, you got everything else. But the core is largely ignored. You know, oh yeah, you know what? Let's gut education, because who gives a shit about Wyoming? And then you wonder why Wyoming voted Trump, because at the very least he promised that he'd listen. He's not necessarily following through, but he made the effort.
Yeah, there's a piece that Stephanie's put over here in the chat. If you look at U.S. history, the North won the battles, but who actually won the war? Have you seen that Georgia is closing all the voting booths in black areas?
They're attempting to, yeah.
Yeah, this is something that we've seen, we've talked about before. We will end up talking about it again, because yeah, this is bullshit, because it's a collection of items. And forgive me for pausing to get the right term out. I'm trying to get the right inflection with the whole damn thing, and I'm sure that you guys can eventually kind of tease out how I'm saying it. But it's one of those things where it's not just the voting booths, it's where they are. It's not just where they are, it's who's allowed to be there. It's not just who's allowed to be there, it's who has access to get over there. Are mass transit lines available to get there from the less affluent areas? And who's supposed to be able to get an ID? Is there a way to get there? Does it cost anything? Blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. You see where this big,
yeah, you know,
snowballing item comes from. I know.
Honestly, I would put it to the Cheeto in charge that when it comes to voting like that, it is not a right of the state to do this or that. And that if this kind of behavior is actually can be proven, which it sounds like in Georgia, it's sounding pretty damn obvious, then I honestly think it should be the responsibility of the Fed to come down on that state like the holy frickin' apocalypse and clean it up. He wants to talk about draining the swamp. I got news for you, pal. The swamp is not just in DC. The swamp is in all these gerrymandered states all over the place, where these stuffed shirt, corn cob up the ass governors who are trying to, you know, die with the most money are basically shifting everything to make sure that they are elected in perpetuity. You know, that they fear for nothing but their own jobs. They're scared to death of their own retirement. I think they're also scared to death of the fact that they've screwed over so many people that if they ever do lose an election, they ain't going to last 6 months outside the office because they're going to get shot. The cast and management and staff of Holy Crap, the Vlogcast do not endorse in any way, shape, or form the use of firearms to remove certain cancerous tumors from government. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
I appreciate that. And oddly enough, that actually brings something worthwhile to the whole damn thing. The idea that there are a lot of places where those who are lucky enough in the beginning, you'll see where I'm saying this, to acquire whatever political clout or power or whatever, the ones who are in lucky enough to be in a position to make a change to things start to do things to keep that power. Gerrymandering political areas, for instance, in order to keep power, as was said, in perpetuity. Yes, I said that one correctly too. I'm doing pretty good so far.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an angle on this whole damn thing that I want to make sure that the rest of us get in for. It seems like, and I want the rest of you guys to kind of chime in on this. It seems like that seems to be just the end game. Set it up so that you cannot be challenged. You cannot be voted out until and unless you decide to leave or you die, because nobody statistically can make a run for your power because of the way that you've set it up for yourself, i.e., you've cheated by gaming the system.
They don't have a problem with that because to them, all right, to put it in like video game ideas, analogy, I play a shit ton of video games, and I used to even play tournament on the Eastern Ladder for things like Counter-Strike and such like. And there were rules. And one of the rules that was written was, if you find an exploit in the game, basically a piece of code that allowed you to do something and you shouldn't be able to do that normally, then you have to report it and you can't use it because it gives you an unfair advantage. Now, in the real world, we have tax loopholes, also, game exploits. We have political loopholes, game exploits. Again, so on and so forth. Things that just, for the most part, were actually written in by accident or because they were never observed to be a problem to begin with. In some cases, we have ones, like say in tax law, for example, where certain ones are written in specifically to give loopholes and so on and so forth. And it's become more abundantly clear that certain ones that have been discovered or manufactured are being protected by those it benefits most, who are in a position to actually correct the mistakes, but they don't want to because, like you were saying, it protects them. It becomes circular. They find something, it makes them empowered. They want more of it. They want to keep it. Gollum, precious.
Yeah, and Joe, I mean, this is a perfect thing. I mean, talking game theory, gaming the system by not doing something explicitly illegal, but just gaming the system a little bit here, a little bit there.
As far as gamers are concerned, that's generally referred to as exploiting. Yeah. Cheating is where you make use of changing the code or something of that sort in the game to benefit you. Whereas exploiting is finding a loophole in the coding that you can then use to your benefit without actually changing the original coding of the game.
And
What's a good example? Well, okay. Game that I play, World of Tanks. We talk about it often enough. Typically, you have 3 types of ammunition for a tank gun. You've got your AP, your HE, and then what's usually referred to as premium or gold ammo. This is ammo that is very expensive. You don't need to pay money into the game to use it, but it's very expensive on your in-game money. Usually the benefit is that it's usually higher penetration or in some cases higher damage.
Okay.
The idea being that,
yeah, you get bigger advantage.
Well, that or just, you could spend half an hour plinking away at a guy who's got a really big tank with a lot of armor, or you could just dab your 2 key and all of a sudden you're able to go right through his armor without having to, use any knowledge of the game, such as weak spots or anything like that.
Right.
Whereas cheating would be downloading a mod pack where, you got an aim bot and it automatically highlights where everybody is on the map.
Yeah, we've seen people who've done that kind of thing. But
I remember those days.
Yeah. But I'm thinking something more along the lines of not exactly an exploit per se, but the idea of gaming the system through would be a good okay. Some people are going to understand this, some people are not. The idea of being able to intentionally X-ray the ground around you in Minecraft.
What?
Joe?
What
Sorry,
game? I think he started up Tank.
Not sure. Anyway, short version, Minecraft, you're in a world where you can dig through.
Are we good?
We're much better now. Yes, thank you. But there are ways where you can accidentally look through the ground. If you're in a particular position, if you got a couple of special ways that things are set up for yourself, you can accidentally see through everything and see where stuff is where you otherwise shouldn't be able to. Through no fault of anybody else, but just because of the way that it's set. Just because of the way that things happen to be. You get an insight to be able to get to much more expensive things. And Bridget, I kind of want to take you into this because you've played what is it? Ark Survival, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If
Quest, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. So if you had the ability of looking through mountains in order to find precious ores that you could use to make new stuff to give you an advantage over the rest of the game, how silly would it be to completely bypass that?
Well, I mean, people have found ways to exploit games, but the thing about it is they also have programs that look out for people doing that and you can get banned. I guess if you could do it with no repercussions, you would. Most people would.
And that's kind of the twofer that I was looking for. There are ways of preventing people from doing that, of utilizing an unforeseen extra power. Usually that's in the courts, where you have to deal with it that way. If something's gone wrong politically, that's the course that you're supposed to follow. But then the question is, if nobody else is looking, who's going to stop you? And that's the big problem. It used to be that we would stop ourselves. that's where I've got a huge problem with a lot of stuff. And Dallin, I'm pretty sure that in a lot of ways you kind of are feeling where I'm going on this. It used to be that we would look at the rules and collectively we would go ahead and say, okay, rules are good. They're there for good reason. We follow the rules because it doesn't hurt anybody. Everybody's on a level playing field, and well, yeah, it gives everybody the fighting chance evenly.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why it should be.
Yeah. That's just it. Things like laws and things like rules are put into place ideally to make sure that, we all kind of make it to tomorrow. But these days, and again, I go back to what I said before about the whole family thing, and I'm trying not to sound like a blowhard, stereotypical Republican conservative person when I say this, because a lot of them talk about the nuclear family, that we have to bring that back. I disagree with that. What we have to bring back is it has to be a family in every sense of the word, in that the child has to come home, the parent or parents, whatever, have to engage. The kid has to feel loved, for crying out loud. The home has to be a safe place for them to go to, where they can, be nurtured, where they can, where the only thing they have, where they don't only have the computer to depend on, that kind of stuff. I preach a lot of that, I know. But
well, don't worry. I mean, not too very long ago, it was TV.
Oh yeah, how many times have we dealt with that one in the past, especially us? Yeah, those cartoons rot your brains. And I still watch.
No, that's not true. I mean, everything I needed to learn about gravity, I learned from the Warner Brothers. Like, if you don't look down, you can't fall. It's just a basic tenet of science. You should look it up.
But if only it were that easy.
But the fact that you're still alive means you haven't actually gone out to try and test that theory. And if you did, it would have been a Darwin Award, and I would have probably posted it on one of my episodes of the WTF News by now.
Yeah, look at the bright side. There's all of the. But what you're saying is one of those things where, again, you kind of peel off a layer, and you peel off another layer, and you peel off another layer. For instance, and again, let me get the other guys to kind of suss this out a little bit further. The nuclear family in the 50s, for example, and the 60s, could get by on one parent in the workforce.
Yep.
In a minimum wage job too.
The breadwinning husband, the housekeeping wife, the son and daughter, and the family dog, with grandpa in the living room and the white picket fence.
Yeah.
Well, the 2.3 kids. I mean, all right, that's the dog.
And don't forget the radio, or one of those newfangled televisions.
Yeah, those Victrola,
maybe even in color.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't until 68. So
yeah. But the thing is, one of the things is that where you have parents these days, unable to deal with when the kid isn't perfect, where they don't win the hockey game, or they don't excel. They don't take home first prize in whatever contest, because for every winner there has to be a loser. And these kids are brought up believing, that you're a winner. You can do anything you want. Just, put your mind to just believe, happy, sunshine, rainbows. They get out in the real world and it slaps them upside the head with the coldest dose of survival of the fittest. Dildo. Yeah, pretty much. It is the big fat dildo of realism that smacks them upside their head and spooges all over them because, reasons. And that's why there's so much anger, because there is a sense of betrayal that suddenly the kids can't can't have it their own way all the time because of the rules. And
well, all right. Well, no, wait a second. There's a couple of pieces on that. One, the whole I don't want to work because I shouldn't have to work thing. I've seen that in some situations where parents completely too much coddle kids.
yes.
Yeah.
I've seen that, and that is a really, really deleterious item. Yes,
That's two.
That's
two.
I did use that twice. All right, good. And I got it right both times. So, yeah. But anybody that wants to go on the participation award argument, who developed those? Kids didn't develop those. Kids didn't go out and get them printed. Kids didn't sign up the typefaces. It's the people who wanted themselves to feel like their kids were doing something worthwhile.
You know,
now, go ahead.
I was going to say, in school, we had Canadian fitness thing in phys ed. And it was a contest that was held every year where you as a student would go through certain exercises, flexed arm hangs, sit-ups, sprinting, shuttle runs, everything like that. And based on your performance overall in all of the competitions, you were given an award. I've never been the athletic type at all. You know, yes, I could run, I can swim, but I don't know if I can swim as good as I used to now, but I had my strengths, but mostly I had my weaknesses. And I'll say this much, to get the participation pin to me was an insult. It told me that I was not good enough and that I had to try to do better. And maybe I was alone in that philosophy, but like to me, just getting something like that just told me that, you know what, I can do better. You know, next year I'll do better. And of course I never did until they brought swimming into it. Then the playing field was leveled considerably because I could swim. I could swim better than most of the mooks I went to school with. But no, like I said, I always thought the participation award was, if you got that, it was even worse than getting nothing, because now you've got certified that you're not good enough.
And for me, it depends as to what the situation was, because to me, a participation award said, okay, yeah, you've got something, you've got a memento that you actually went through something.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, stuff like that was always, okay, you were part of it. I was, in some ways, I was proud enough to be able to even have that much. Okay, cool. And I was happy enough with that. But where I'm going with this altogether is that, and yes, this, believe it or not, this all does kind of come together, believe it or not, is that there are so many times where we see these things I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out how to lay this out properly and really get to it. There are a number of pieces that are in place culturally, and it doesn't matter US, Canada, Mexico, I don't care where it is, where people get put into groupings far too easily. And this is something that we as humans, we just do. We're pattern matching organisms. We do that. But culturally, it ends up separating one group from another for no other reason but because of, first, the way that we look to each other. And then maybe it's how we sound to one another. And then maybe it's what we say to one another. The ideas that we end up having. Because as I said, the participation award, some people think it's a complete detriment to society. Some people don't really care. Some of it see it as it's a memento, and okay, moving on. You know, there's so many levels to it. But what's happening with that, with how we end up talking to each other, some people don't even want to be bothered with a different point of view about it at all. Some people will say that, you know, the participation award thing is completely stupid. That's it. End of it all. And why should I even bother talking to you? Because what the hell? Okay. Oh, well and good. But why? And it's not necessarily the participation award thing, because that doesn't matter. Why is it that... Why do people not want to even bother talking through anymore? Because participation awards can go for things as great as, don't forget, debate club, whose entire point is to go ahead and talk through an issue and eventually win an argument, which, you know, I never did that, but oh man, I would love to go ahead and do that these days. I would mop the floor with these 13-year-olds. I would love to be able to do that now.
Yeah, but of course that goes back to the whole rage mob thing that we talked about earlier. In that that kind of decorum, like, okay, I'm switching gears a little bit here. We've heard, or okay, I've heard, because I have no life and I watch a lot of YouTube, and not just for the music videos, which is to my detriment because I think I would get more from more music videos. Anyways, I always hear the talk of, you know, why don't you come on my stream and debate me? Let's have a debate. Let's have a discussion. But of course, it's not a debate in the classic sense. It's not a discussion. It never is decorum. It is internet blood sports is what it is. It is nothing more than a whole bunch of people screaming at each other to the point where the fallacy ref would probably die from saying ad hominem too much. No,
it would start sounding like phenomena.
Yeah, like I'm talking. I have seen. I think I watched one for about 10 minutes, and I just went, I really need to put out a hit on all of these people because they are terrible. They are the dregs of humanity. But some of these streams, I see the clock on them, and they're lasting 4, 5, 6 hours.
What?
And it's just people screaming at each other. You know, putting up, well, you know, on your last video, you said this and you did this. So what's your real position here? Can you prove it to me? Are you actually a pedophile or are you just a degenerate? You know, I want you to say to everybody on the internet that you're this or that. It's just like, who the hell would sign up for something like that? Like, look, I get it. Masochism is a thing. I don't kink shame, but come on, give me a break.
Yeah, you know what? You just reminded me of something. The rest of you guys, are any of you at all familiar with intelligence squared? Have you heard of this?
Oh, the name sounds familiar.
I'm too tired to say that it sounds familiar.
I honestly have no idea. It does sound familiar, but I don't remember where from.
And Bridget, yes, no? I would expect that you might. Okay. Dallin had just reminded, because of the way that my brain, he basically DJ Rule zeroed me accidentally in this kind of situation. There I don't know if it's still running, but there was a show production, forget exactly what it was, called Intelligence Squared, where they would have two teams literally debating an issue. And this is something that was over in Stephanie might actually know about this one. I believe it was set out of, I think it might have been the Beeb. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm trying to remember really quickly. But one of the debates that I very specifically remember was Stephen Fry and Christopher Hitchens, who were debating a couple of folks from the Catholic Church in... There it is. Found it. Stephen Fry and Christopher Hitchens battle it out with Archbishop John Onaiyekan and Widdecombe over the motion. This is the motion that was on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
The Catholic Church is a force for good in the world.
Oh,
I found their website. I should say I found the YouTube channel, and I found specifically the debate itself, which is 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I will link this in the show notes so folks can take a look at this, because I remember very clearly this was one of those moments of absolute beauty in debate.
Yeah.
The way that it works is they start with the proposition. People come into the studio or whatever it is. And Stephanie's got it. That's on YouTube, right? One of the few debates I actually have watched, well, until Widdecombe started her nonsense. Oh, that is being very nice about it. So the way that Intelligence Squared works is people come in to the studio or wherever it is they're holding the debate to record, and everyone is given a card with the debate topic, and they vote. They tabulate the votes before the debate starts, and then the debate happens. And both sides get to present themselves, present their stuff, counter-argue against each other, and then when it's over, they vote again. I dare say that the results are no less than positively eye-popping.
So, just so I understand, I actually might check this out later.
Oh, yes, it definitely worthwhile.
So, they vote first, thinking so the audience would have a preconceived notion about the topic, so they would vote as to which side they think would win. Yeah, how they feel on it.
Right.
Then they have the debate, and then they go. Then it's like a second vote to see if anyone's changed their mind.
Correct. And the debate is done in a formal process. They talk back and forth at one point. They're very good people. They're very well thought out. They discuss and debate the topic without going after each other as personal people. If ever you wanted to see what an actual debate properly looks like, this is the guy. And oh my God, I'd completely forgotten about that. I need to watch this again for myself, because I need to feel very good that, people know how to debate. Plus, I mean, let's face it, most of us know Hitch and miss him. But Stephen Fry as a debater is...
did you see the interview where he was getting interviewed one-on-one? I forget the name, but and the interviewer had asked him what would happen, what would you have to say if you died and came across God, and he basically stipulated, he's like, well, he basically asked which one, and he had indicated that if it had been the Greek gods, he would understand, because they were basically just like us. They had their follies.
Zeus was a woman.
Right. But the Christian God, he said, "How dare you?" And the interviewer just kind of like sat back in his seat, was like, "Whoa, you would say that to the Almighty?" Kind of look on his face.
You know,
And
that
it
was the first time I actually heard the word capricious used multiple times in a speech. And, yeah, no, I remember seeing that, and I think that was like one of the hallmark moments of, you know, just how a lot of people are seeing religion these days, or well, I'd like to think more and more that this is, you know, how people are seeing religion. But the trouble is, you know, you're getting back into that whole rage mob mentality on, well, now on the Christian side, because, you know, and I mean, okay, we joke and we laugh about the whole eating a baby thing because, you know, we take it, we own it, we mock people with it. There are people who take that statement seriously.
Yeah.
And honestly, now I have heard this from people who claim to be journalists, who claim to be reporters. When you mention the word Planned Parenthood, and they make it sound like it's nothing more than an assembly line for baby body parts. And these are people who, on certain issues, I can almost respect them for their rational thinking. But the second you mention that, boom, that goes out the window. They change the channel and they turn into one of these rabid, foaming at the mouth morons. Although the motivation is different. It has nothing to do with, well, okay, part of it has to do with the religious bend, but most of it has to do with the fact that it's money.
You know what doesn't surprise me about the whole thing with Planned Parenthood, everything, the extreme hate for Planned Parenthood. What doesn't surprise me is that most guys that I've come across who are anti-Planned Parenthood are anti-Planned Parenthood because they don't really know what they're about, and that doesn't really surprise me all that much. For the most part, other than doing paperwork for helping to assist in paperwork, the only thing Planned Parenthood does really for men is they can provide some condoms, prophylactics, that sort of thing. They don't really have a whole lot going on beyond that for men. For
STD
women,
stuff.
huh?
STD treatment.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, yeah, there's that. All right, and
I've never had to use them, but on the other hand, for women, they are a literal lifesaver in terms of not just providing, okay, so the STD treatments, prophylactics, paperwork. They work hard to ensure that women who have to go in for, like, say, a breast exam, right? And they actually have to go get scanned, where there's this huge machine, a woman puts her breast in it, crimps it, and scans it and all that other crap. Some insurance companies want to get out of that and everything else. So they help make sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted and such. And that is, though, everything I've just talked about, mammogram, thank you.
Yeah.
The things I've just talked about are most of the Planned Parenthoods. Some very small count of Planned Parenthoods do abortion.
And they don't do it with federal tax money.
Exactly. They're not allowed to.
Yeah. But these pundits, or pinheads, depending on how you want to call it, they still proliferate. They double, triple, quadruple, quintuple down on that lie constantly, because they know that if the truth actually got out, and if, and honestly, I'd like to think that Planned Parenthood is completely transparent in terms of its books. Like, if some Republican blowhard went in there, I need to see your books to make sure that my taxes ain't going to killing and eating no babies, that they could open the books and go, yeah, here you go. You know,
well, hold that thought 1 second. Bridget, 2 items. One, I'm pretty sure that they kind of do have to keep their books open to a certain degree, don't they?
Yes, they have to.
Yeah,
Okay, so
I mean,
hold on
Yeah.
1 second, because there's another piece of this one. Well, again, Bridget, I'm sure that you've seen, like a lot of us, have seen the typical posters that the protesters, I don't want to use any other wording right now, have held up, where they've shown bloody fetal corpses and whatnot, saying that, you know, they're babies and the whole thing, only for those of us who have investigated the picture to say, that's not a human fetus in any way, shape, or form. That's from a different animal species entirely, and yet they still don't believe that.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head what the most famous of them was. Elephant, I think is what it was, or something not human, not even close.
I don't know, but I mean, pig fetuses and human fetuses look an awful lot alike.
Yeah, could have been.
And some of the pictures that they have on posters are, you know, actual fetuses that have been miscarried at some point that had nothing to do with abortion. I mean, they use just all kinds of bullshit propaganda.
Yeah, they'll use whatever lie continues whatever narrative they want to keep going with.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe, I mean, we've said it on so many occasions over there in Pittsburgh, right where we know where they are, and the narrative is so thick, they keep having to change their front window every time another brick goes through it yet again.
This is true, though. Thankfully, it hasn't happened in a while.
Yeah, there's something. There's a bright side to it, which is the fact that they're in a brick front face means that nobody can burn them down by throwing a Molotov at the front door, at least.
What about plexi? I mean, throwing a brick at plexi is liable to throw the brick back at the thrower.
Yeah, I imagine there's probably some kind of city code or something that says they can't do that.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me in the least. Plus, God, glass that's got effectively bulletproof or impact resistant glass. Oh, man.
Well, I'm just saying, like on that second movie, Meet the Fockers or whatever it was, and where Robert De Niro had him throw the brick at the glass on the RV, and it bounced right off and hit the rental car right in the windshield. I was like, we should get some of that. It's like, I'm willing to donate towards that kind of stuff and have them replace their front glass panels with that, and then watch them throw bricks at it. Point. Oh,
which would be all well and good, but what comes back to this whole damn thing is, like Alan was saying, they double, triple, quadruple, septuple down on whatever the lie is, and you're just wrong because you're on a different part of the. You may not be in opposition of, but you don't agree with, and that's the problem. If you're not with, doesn't matter if you agree. Pardon me. It doesn't matter if you disagree. If you don't agree, you're wrong. And I'm saying it that way because, as Matt Dillahunty has put it, there's a great a great way that he's described it. Okay. Admittedly, it's dirty because I was drinking my tang out of it. Whatever. Anyway, so I'm holding a mug, a rather large mug. He usually uses a glass, a big glass jar, and it's full of jelly beans. For argument's sake, doesn't matter what kind of jelly beans in there. I will tell you that there are 127 jelly beans in this jar. Do you believe me? No. Okay. There are an odd number in there. Do you believe me?
You might be right, but there's no definitive proof.
Exactly. I am not willing to say that you are right but I'm not willing to say that you're wrong. I just don't believe you yet because I haven't had an opportunity to kind of check for myself. It's the
And
same
what I
kind of thing.
and the thing that I said, you might, where I said, I'm not sure, you don't have proof that you're right, right? A lot of people take that to be as, well, you're not saying I'm wrong, so therefore I'm right.
Yeah.
Or worse yet, if you don't say that I'm right, you're wrong. Whether I'm right or not, it doesn't matter. It's whether or not you actually follow with me if you believe me.
Yeah.
Because I need to be believed.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it all comes down to. If you're not believing with me, you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't get anybody anywhere anymore.
Yeah. And if you don't agree with me 100% on everything that I believe in or that I stand for, you are, and then insert all the insults at the end of it. I don't think I have to go down that road again. But it's the same thing. It's you're either 100% with me or you are the enemy. And this kind of absolutism these days is really what's killing a lot of, like I said before, the discourse. You know, I have my views on things. You guys have your views on things. And I would wager that in some cases, some of them would differ. But we could sit down and actually talk about it without, screaming at each other and actually come away with it with, a handshake and, yeah, I'll see you next week. But that's not the case in a lot of places these days. And like I said, a lot of these so-called journalists, like when it comes to the whole Planned Parenthood thing, I've wanted to write them and say, you know what? I agree with you on a lot of things, but the second you go into your little mini rant about Planned Parenthood and start spreading that falsehood that everybody else is eating up like gospel, you, to me, lose all of your credibility because you are perpetrating a lie. You're exaggerating, and I understand you're doing it for, like, you would claim it's for entertainment value, but you forget the power you have. And like another particular rotund, scratchy-voiced individual who has recently been unpersoned by certain facets of social media, I don't think... And again, and I honestly think this could be another topic for another show at some point. I've heard a lot of things on both sides about that one too. And what I look at it is that people like that, they have a following. And I think there is a fair bit of responsibility on the part of a broadcaster or a content creator to... Okay, if you're going to go out there and say that you don't want them putting something in the waters that turns the frogs gay, there better be a big, this is satire somewhere on your content to say that I'm saying this to get a laugh. Because there are people out there who will take this wholesale and they will believe it and they will propagate it, which is why chemtrails is still a thing. And I mean, how many times has that been debunked?
Let's see. Going by Rat, at least 2,000. Now, the part of the problem that we're running into here is, well, like was said before, money for schools is dwindling out.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been a concerted effort for decades.
Yep.
Not specifically about schools, mind you, but about every facet of trying to squeeze every drop out of every penny. I can still remember, going back a long ways, back to the 70s, when it used to be trying to trim taxes in order to pay less for things like the police. well, we can get away with fewer police, so we don't have to pay as much and still have the same level of coverage. We don't have to pay as much for schools to still have teachers teaching 30 in a classroom because, well, whatever. But we're still going to get the tax breaks, and we're going to trim down on how much we're going to pay because we don't want to pay any more than what we've been paying because we don't want to. And I have to, even though we've been, even though you and I have been talking a lot through this one for a second, I'm gonna get back to you on this one, Dallin, because we know,
yeah,
or at least we're gonna make sure on this. But Tech, you work. I'm not gonna call it government contract, but you work in conjunction with a lot of folks that work with the government.
Yes,
and I have to believe that some people probably would have a funny thought of it at first. Of, well, here it is. I'm paying my own salary because I'm paying taxes. That's what's paying for my salary.
Yeah, I have met people who said, that when they sit there, they're sitting there paying themselves. Yep. And I've heard that before. And the first time I heard it, I thought about it, and I was like, they're right. If they're a government employee, who is somebody who, because there's military, there's government, and then there's contractors for the most part. And the military and the government people, when they're sitting there in front of their computers doing their work, they're working for the government. They're getting paid by the government, and then they go home and pay their taxes. Their taxes go back into their paying themselves. But if you think about it, paying taxes, it comes back to everybody. I mean, you've got the roads, you've got your infrastructure, you've got everything around you. Your taxes are not just being squandered like some people say. It goes back into the things that are useful. For example, like educating our youth so that we don't end up having freaking TV personalities as presidents.
I have no children. I still pay taxes for the local schools in my area. Why? Because I don't want to live in a world full of idiots.
Yep. Thank you, John Green. And Bridget, you and I are old enough to remember. I know the rest of the guys could too, but we're old enough to remember when one of the big talking points for the Republican Party was the mantra of tax and spend Democrats. You remember that?
Yep.
Now, here's my question to you. As someone who is not an economist, if you collect taxes, what are you going to do with that money?
Spend it.
Okay.
That's what you're supposed to do with it.
And if you are not Democrat and you collect those taxes, what are you going to do with it then?
Spend it.
It almost sounds like it doesn't matter what political party you're with when you collect taxes, because you kind of need money to spend to buy things like, I don't know, good schools, good teachers, supplies.
I always thought it was hilarious that you get so many conservatives who say, no, I'm voting for this because I don't want to spend money on this, that, and the other thing. And those people are on that platform as, no, we're not going to be spending money. We're going to be saving money, yada, yada, yada. And then they go and spend even more money than the other side was going to do. And the liberals are like, well, wait a minute. We were going to spend money, but there's no way we were going to spend that much. That's just irresponsible.
Yeah. And,
yeah. And by the way, as you're coming up with this from Dallin, yeah, go ahead and talk about what taxes are and what they're for up there.
Up here, our taxes we do get taxed a fair bit. Like I look at my paycheck and I cringe.
Okay, hold that thought 1 second. Shauna, I just saw it pop up. They do not cover supplies. Let me modify that a little bit. When I meant supplies, I actually meant the supplies, not for the students, but for the operation of the school itself.
Yeah.
Paperwork, copy machines, mimeograph. Oh, mimeographs. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, going.
No, yeah, I do get taxed more. Like I said, I look at my paycheck, I do cringe a little bit because there's a big chunk taken out. But
oh, please make sure that you get that $100 extra in there, please.
Just hold on.
Okay.
The water that comes out of my tap, I can drink. The water that comes out of my faucets in the bathroom, I can shower with. My roads don't have potholes, or if they do, they're fixed very quickly. I don't have to worry about blackouts, brownouts, or even beige outs, even when it looks like Mother Nature is having a temper tantrum outside. I see adequate police. When there is a fire in a local area, it's dealt with. And of course, then we get to the whole healthcare thing, which I'm going to say I think I know a little bit more about, but I think there's some intricacies that I'm not quite too keyed up on. I think our systems might be a little more similar than I thought originally. But needless to say, yes, I do pay a little bit more taxes so that the person who gets hurt over here can at least be guaranteed that they might be able to get back and become a contributing member of the overall economy after a certain amount of time. What I really, so, you know, police, fire, healthcare, infrastructure is the big one. And of course, I've always referenced Flint, but you know, I was in Raleigh a couple of months ago for work, talking with a few people there, and I mentioned Flint. It came up as a conversation piece. And one of the guys looked at me and he leveled a gaze at me that kind of gave me a chill. You know, it is one of those, what I'm about to say is not bullshit kind of gaze. Flint is not the worst. It just got a lot of attention. But there are places in the US that have even worse infrastructure problems. And yet, what do I see but a $600 billion budget for the military?
Yep.
For next year? 600
at least.
And
remember,
yeah.
When I was doing my thing for the 2015, I think it was, I believe it was roughly 600, and it only goes up.
Yeah.
Funny enough.
And I can guarantee you that did not all come from the taxpayer, because y'all got what are you at now? 2, 3, or is it $13 trillion debt?
And my taxes went up anyway. So
yeah, well, of course your taxes went up.
Part of it did come from there.
Because you've got to pay down the interest on the debt that you owe. Even though, I don't know, didn't Cheeto Boy have something to say about he was going to muscle the debt away in some cases, basically to flip the bird to some of the nations that you owe money to, or the banks or something? I thought I heard something about that.
Yeah, I believe the technical term is default, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, of course he would know a thing or five about that, wouldn't he?
11 is actually what I was thinking, but sure.
Well, he hopes Daddy Country will bail out the USA.
Yeah, but Alexander Hamilton help us.
Yeah, but the trouble is, Daddy USA is avoiding paying taxes because all the corporations are going overseas because they don't have to pay $15 an hour to get their shoes. They only have to pay 25 cents a week.
Right. And then if you talk to a conservative about that, they say, well, you know, it's the fault of making a higher minimum wage. People should just work harder, pull themselves up by their bootstraps, which was never used as a term to tell people, you know, hey, you just got to knuckle down. It was used originally to describe something that was impossible, and it was not a positive phrase. Yeah. You know, it was demeaning towards, hey, you might as well tell somebody to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, you know, like, hey, you're an idiot. Don't do that. Yeah. And now it's like, well, you know, if they've got a problem paying their bills, they should just pull themselves up by the bootstraps. They'll be fine.
Yeah. And that's when you ask them flat out, have you ever been without a job? Or better yet, do you work, Mr. Rockefeller? Oh, you don't? Then obviously you can't relate. So, you know what? STFU.
And a lot of them can't relate because a lot of them have their money work for them because they have money in such quantity as it is able to work for them. If I try to take the money that I have and work it in a way that they are working theirs, I would go broke because I wouldn't be able to tie up enough funds to have it create that money engine. Okay. So again, this goes back to like tax loopholes and things like that. You have to have a particular style of money engine.
Mm-hmm.
And at my level of income, you just can't create that because the tax loopholes don't exist at my income level.
Yeah. So there you go.
And that's because those were closed in an attempt to save money. But the tax loopholes that are the truly worst offenders are the ones that truly take a chunk of taxes away from the country to be put to use, don't exist. Even when they were open, did not exist at my level. They exist at Trump's level.
Yeah. So you see, that's what I'm saying. The system. Oh, sorry. I'm trying not to sound like a tinfoil hat here. I feel I have to disclaimer this. It's the constant creation of frustration and anger and, disenchantment on the part of the American people. And it builds up into that rage machine that then some narrative spewing figurehead, be it politician, religious figure, or otherwise, basically they just have to point their finger and say, that's the cause of all your misery, and just step back and watch the bloodshed. And the thing is, nobody's waking up to it. And the thing is, anybody who is trying to wake up or who's trying to do something about it, they lack the wisdom. Like their heart's in the right place. They want to do something and want to make that kind of change, but they lack the knowledge of how to go about doing it. And the people who would have the kind of experience to help guide them on that way, well, they're making their millions anyway, so what the hell should they care? The rest of the world can go to hell as long as their penthouse remains standing. It's the more I look at this stuff, just the more complex and convoluted it seems. And I honestly don't know if there is a way out, if there is a way to get back to the days of decorum and, overall good sportsmanship. I fear for your nation, guys. I really do.
A lot of us do at this point. We've only got a little bit more time left to go. And Shauna had said, by the way, minimum wage is not to set a living wage. It was to keep employers from paying people so little they can't support themselves. And yet here we are right there.
That's the same thing as a living wage.
Well, no. The difference is a living wage, one would expect, would be, well, I'm misremembering the quote, and I'm not even sure if the quote is accurate, but it was something along the lines of basically people should be able to live on a 40-hour work week, to have a home, to afford transportation, to support a family, and have recreation to go along with that, and to perhaps continue education as well if wanted. Now, whether or not I'm remembering it correctly, I don't remember off the top of my head. I honestly don't. I think I loosely remember it that way. Be that as it may. Regardless of the idea of where a minimum wage should come from or what it should do, I want to pitch out to you guys to see about finishing through with this. The idea of economic safety. We've talked about on many occasions here in the US that people can have their entire livelihood wiped out by a bad medical problem.
Yep.
That in some cases, some families, many families, teeter on the brink of absolute financial ruin if they have to go into the hospital for a couple of days, even.
Yeah, which is why we actually have a bankruptcy option for people with too many medical bills.
So here's my question to kind of close us out with you guys, because I've got my closing. Would there be less social strife? Is probably the nicest way I can put it. There would be less bickering. There would be less, if you're not with me, you're against me kind of thing. If there was less to worry about for our own safety in regards like that. I don't necessarily mean from the medical side, but the financial side. If we had less to worry about, less that we were concerned about trying to scrape every little drop that we could. Because as we've heard, minimum wage, 40-hour work week, minimum wage cannot be afforded to live on anywhere in the US currently. Do we think that people would be less angry overall if the financial stakes were changed?
I think it would help in some cases, but it would harm in others. And it's because you see places trying to increase the minimum wage. And then you get the people who shout it down and say it's going to ruin the local economy. Seattle was the big one. And I had a debate about this, and it was the first time I ever got strawmanned, which I thought was funny. No, the guy was saying, like, well, Seattle went to $15 an hour, and look what happened. It destroyed the city. And then I sent the guy a news report saying, no, they took a hit for, I think, a year, but then they came back stronger than ever. The economy started moving because people actually started being able to invest locally. Like, people who are extraordinarily wealthy do not really contribute to the economy. They're not out there buying. They don't go to movies. They don't go to.
The trickle-down effect does not work.
Yeah, and okay, there was one example where it did, and I've actually heard a Republican pundit tout this one quite a bit, where a business actually did use its trickle-down whatever to expand into another place. So it actually followed the model. But that was one example out of how many times it doesn't work. Yeah. And of course, less than all is not enough. Like it's
yeah, because as soon as somebody starts taking advantage of the model, which is what happened pretty much across the board, as soon as one starts doing it, it unbalances everything. Mm-hmm. And when you have companies used to have retirement plans.
Yeah.
They used to have a lot of things that some of them just don't have anymore. And the reason why they got rid of them is because one company somewhere said, hey, look, if I get rid of this, I can have a bigger parachute and my shareholders can have bigger income. Mm-hmm. Screw the personnel. They're just human resources after all.
Yeah, and let them quit because there's 500 people behind them that are willing to do the job.
Right. And so what happened was somebody pushed the domino and it went ting, 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 ting.
Yeah.
And now in the US, it's become, oh, look, it's an at-will state. We can fire you without giving you a reason.
Yep.
Unions? Yeah. What unions? Back in the 50s, they were controlling everything. What the hell? You can't have unions here. That's,
Yeah.
But one thing that we are hearing of now, and I hope it catches on, there's a couple of smaller cities who are toying around with the idea of doing a basic income or universal basic income. and see
Oh,
how
you
that
mean
goes.
free
And
rides.
no,
no.
well, no, I think that this needs to happen, especially as more things are automated and more jobs are phased out. And
Oh, I agree with you, but
people will take that money and spend it on what they need, and that will help, stir further commerce.
the war cry against that will be, oh, so people who don't work should be getting the same amount of money as people who do work. So why should I have to work?
Well, it's not going to be that much money. It's just going to be a stipend, but it'll be enough to where people can have, housing and food, and that will contribute to the economy.
Yeah.
Instead of spending it.
I, for one, welcome robots. I think robots should take over all aspects of manufacturing, creation, everything else. Humans should be able to sit back and go, okay, look, robots are taking care of everything else. Let's play our sports. Let's create our artwork. Let's create our music. Let's continue to do science and math and all these fun things, and let the robots plow the fields.
But in a couple of places where they have tried this basic, income, people are still keeping their jobs and still working.
Yeah. But the other thing too, Tech, and this is where, I'll disagree with you on that one as far as everybody wanting to, achieve that, the top level of Maslow's pyramid there, the self-actualization. Not everybody wants to play music. Not everybody has the talent to expand their horizon. And a lot of people would really love nothing more than to just sit on their ass, eat Doritos, and play video games.
I
24/7
eat Doritos. I can't stand them anymore. It's just
whatever.
It's just,
but my point is that it sounds great. It sounds, so Star Trek-y utopian. It's beautiful. It sounds awesome.
Right.
But it ain't gonna happen.
It's not gonna. It's not gonna happen. One is probably there's the statistical chance of it happening in our lifetime is pretty much slim to none.
Yeah, but what I'm saying though is that even like this,
could it happen? Way into the future, a whole lot of things would have to go right. A whole lot of things would have to go right.
And one major thing would have to go wrong, and that would be
we'd also need a reduction in the human population.
Precisely.
We'd also have to have people become a lot more emotionally mature.
Bingo.
War would have to go bye-bye. Yeah, and of course, resources. We'd have to have a system of importing and exporting necessary resources as need all over wherever they're needed, whenever they're needed.
And see, in that you mentioned emotional maturity.
Mm-hmm.
And that circles us right back to where we are with the whole poor sportsmanship thing, is that we have degraded in that respect. Like I said, like we started out with, we were a society where discourse, decorum, and respect was a thing. Now, it's, like I said before, it's internet blood sports. It's ad hominem attacks everywhere. It's
if you're not with me, you're against me.
Yeah, and it's also comedians that are just so goddamn tasteless. Like, there was one, oh God, she was, she did the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and she like told some really cringy jokes. What the hell was her name? Wolf something.
Doesn't matter.
Anyways, she had a Netflix special or a Netflix show. She did a couple of episodes and it was canceled. And I'm pretty sure that if George Carlin were alive today, he would have walked on that stage and backhanded her as hard as he possibly could because her jokes were that bad. But that's just me.
Well, what I'm hoping for is to see a swing back the other way.
That's called the reverse bitch slap.
No, I'm hoping to see. I'm hoping to see the pendulum swing back from things being this extreme.
Well,
to going back the other way.
Yeah, all I can say to that is I've got one perfect solution. Ms. Ocasio-Cortez can no longer be in politics, because I got to tell you, she's not helping our side. But that's just me.
Wait, who?
All I'm saying is that you want the pendulum to swing the other way. You want to get that individual out of office. You want to sort of bring things back around. Get a leader and get one that actually is going to unite the Democratic Party under a banner of common sense, rational thought, and good sportsmanship.
I have one of those. He's just not prominent enough. I hope he will be in time.
This Ocasio-Cortez, she was the one that
Yeah.
she's advocating no borders, no nation, no flag, no USA. She's so far to the left, even lefties are going, you're too far left.
Well, you want someone like Mayor Pete Buttigieg. He is the guy that had run for the NC chair. Young mayor from South Bend. He's 36 years old. Saw a very good speech that he gave yesterday in Illinois. And he's on the right track. He would be one of the ones to do it. He's the mayor nobody's ever heard of.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, could he potentially get the boost from the DNC to take a run for it?
I think he's working on it. He's trying to. He's getting some more recognition and things like that. He's like on the very outskirts of the millennial generation, so he understands where they're coming from. But he's not your typical, millennial. Very well educated, very well spoken. He's done a miracle with South Bend as far as bringing it back from being a dying town to actually growing and becoming a center of data analytics and things like that. He's amazing.
Yeah.
I would love to have him make a run for POTUS. I don't think he would be ready in 2020, but probably by 2024.
Well, first he's got to get the DNC leadership first.
Well, I would like to see him do that and possibly run as a senator or maybe as governor of Indiana. But he is really impressive, and he is the type of person that would be the ideal, future party.
I was going to say, y'all had Pence, so you got nowhere to go but up, really.
Oh, that's true. But but he really could unite people. He makes a lot of sense, and he's not very combative. I think people would love him if they actually knew him.
That's kind of making me wonder now. Maybe Indiana did vote for Trump just to get Pence the hell out of their state once and for all.
We wanted him gone.
Well, that's kind of my point.
And it kind of backfired. So
yeah.
We didn't mean to foist him on the rest of the country. I'm so sorry.
A little bit more diluted that way. Anyway, we're getting pretty close to it. And I've got a thing to close us out with. So anybody got anything else that they want to finish off with at this point before I go ahead and throw something at you?
I can't wait for next week.
Oh, tell me about it.
We don't have time to tell you about it. You'll have to wait till next week.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Stay tuned, folks. It's going to get good.
Yeah.
Or bad, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. All right. So with that, then let me go ahead and close you guys out with something. There are going to be other people who are very familiar with this, and I will admit that I'm stealing a bit. Sorry, it's an old bit, but it's kind of funny. Because when I got to talking to a buddy of mine earlier today, I referenced this bit, and it just seems right. Once I saw this guy on a bridge about to jump, and I said, "Don't do it." He said, "Nobody loves me." I said, "God loves you. Do you believe in God?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Are you a Christian or a Jew?" He said, "Christian." I said, "Me too." "Protestant or Catholic?" He said, "Protestant." I said, "Me too." What franchise?" He said, "Baptist." I said, "Me too." "Northern Baptist or Southern Baptist?" He said, "Northern Baptist." "Me too." "Northern Conservative Baptist or Northern Liberal Baptist?" He said, "Northern Conservative Baptist." I said, "Me too." "Northern Conservative Baptist Great Lakes region or Northern Conservative Baptist Eastern region?" He said, "Northern Conservative Baptist Great Lakes region." I said, "Me too." "Northern Conservative Baptist Great Lakes Region Council of 1879 or Northern Conservative Baptist Great Lakes Region Council of 1912? He said, "Northern Conservative Baptist Great Lakes Region Council of 1912. I said, "Die, heretic," and pushed him off. there is a point where we really need to take a look and see why we're objecting to somebody else. And this is an old bit. This goes back to the 80s. And for anybody that's wondering, Emo Phillips, not the greatest of comedians in the world, but this is a piece of genius. We need to look at what's going on with the people that we're disagreeing with and really, honestly, look at it and say, I disagree for a good reason. And you're not a bad person because we disagree, no matter what you say. After all, we can get away with saying, you're a bad person, I disagree with you. Not because I disagree with what your position is, but because you're a literal fucking Nazi. Oh, wait. That does go into all of what you just said anyway. Yeah. I can disagree with you on good terms with my conscience. There are times when we have to be completely on the opposite side of somebody's argument. But that's very, very rare. Actually think about what it is that you're disagreeing about and what other people are disagreeing with you over. See if it's actually worth going to war over. All right, Sonny? Joey gets that reference right there. I really, really very much hope so. But that's for another.
Which is why we stay out of New Jersey.
It's exactly right. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for being with us tonight. We hope that you had yourself a great time listening to all of our positions and found something worthwhile in all of them to kind of think about. So as always, we thank the panel for being out with us. Unredo Tech, thank you very much for your time this morning, and you have yourself a good sleep, because Lord knows, I bet you're ready for it.
Oh, God, yeah. I'm definitely ready for it.
You get up your sleep, because you're going to need it for next weekend.
Yes, sir.
But thank you so much, man.
Always a pleasure.
Joey, I'm so glad you caught that reference. I knew you were just all of a sudden kind of looking around going, I get that. I get that reference.
Take the gun, leave the canola. Or take the canola, leave the gun, take the canola.
Close enough. One of the few good reasons for using duct tape. Double wrap. Never mind. There's a whole of that. You have yourself good morning. Rest well if and or when you get around to it. Thanks for your time, man.
Tell him it was just business.
Close enough. Bridget, of course, thank you very much. You're one of the last ones out, but you were one of the first ones in, so thank you.
You're welcome.
You have yourself a good morning, and thank you ever so much.
You're welcome.
Are you looking at me in the little corner over there? You know what I'm doing over here?
If you want to find my musings, you can find me on my blog at bridgetfitch2112.wordpress.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Bridget Fitch.
Thank you very much. It's like pulling teeth, man. It's like pulling teeth over here.
I know.
Every time.
Some people don't like to overly promote themselves.
Don't care. It's one of the few times when people don't have too much of a choice in the matter.
True.
Oh boy.
Alan, thank you very much for your time. You have a great and fun and wonderful morning for yourself.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be we're gonna be putting the hazy in those lazy, hazy, crazy days of summer to this week. I'm hoping for that thunderstorm though. I really am.
Yeah, didn't happen yet, huh?
No, I mean it's been fairly cool today, but definitely no thunder boomers yet, but there's still tomorrow.
Excuse me.
As for myself, of course, I do the curation of the audio version of this show over at holycrapthevlogcast.com. And for again, like Bridget, when I've got those musings that maybe don't quite fit into this, but maybe just fit into my own warped little world, you can catch me over at inthewind.yo5.ca.
Thank you much, man. And for the folks that are unaware of it for whatever reason, the dust and everything that we were talking about earlier is kind of caught up over through Calgary, and Dallin was even saying last night that they were looking for thunderstorms to kind of take some of that crap out of the air and everything, and not just yet. But we're hoping. For what it's worth, by the way, for those of you that are all up in arms about the whole global warming, no, it's climate change, because over here today in Buffalo, in the middle of summer, it was 21 Celsius, 70 degrees Fahrenheit, where the last couple of years we've been in the 90 plus range. Yeah, let's just go ahead and remind you, it's called change, not heating or cooling. It's aberrant change.
Yeah, and the double down is happening.
Yeah, but that's a whole other thing. So I promise I will not be bringing in a snowball from outside for next week's show, okay? You're welcome. As always, everybody, if you would like to catch up on all of our stuff, as was mentioned, yes, take a swing over to holycrapthevlogcast.com. All social notes are available over there, and the download link, of course. If you would like to send us a voicemail message, the phone number is 859-HCTV 554 859-4288 554. I have gotten a couple of phone calls through there. Robocalls.
Yeah.
Please get in touch with us by hitting 9 at the pause, because we would like to contact you, but no. No. I am not refinancing a mortgage because I don't have a mortgage. Nice try, though, guys. A for effort. At least you got a good voice actor for your phone line, whatever. Anyway.
And base for bitch slap.
Yeah, as soon as we can come up with hammer
Boy.
over IP, that would be great.
Oh, boy.
We could probably get that thing kickstarted a hell of a lot easier than the water seeker, okay?
Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, and we'll be looking forward to talking to you guys again next week. As was mentioned, I don't know if we are going to make specifically a not safe for work. We probably will, considering what's going to end up happening. And yes, the last not safe for work, I did set age restricted because I really should for those.
I honestly would suggest the whole age restriction and not safe for work for next week.
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of the topic.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's probably a really good idea. And one last item before we go. Shauna, the guys over there in the live chat, Shauna and Stephanie, thank you guys. Felix was there earlier, so thank you. Shauna, there was the last item that you would put over there, and I hope that you are still listening. I want time to read every book I can lay my hands on. The idea of being able to read everything that you can, and maybe just that, and still pull in a universal paycheck or universal income, sorry. I don't see something wrong with that, because what will you do with a mind that is so enriched with new information? You will find a way to use it, and probably to teach and to enrich other minds. You become a teacher. You give back to society in a different way. Just because it's all rainbows and roses doesn't mean it's wrong. So with that, we'll talk to you guys again next week. Again, it will be a really hot topic, so please know that in advance.
Hot topic.
Oh, if only it were just that simple. Anyway, we got to get on out of here. And yeah, Tech, I see it up over there. He's got the big blue hat. Make racism wrong again. Yeah, I like that idea. And Shauna's saying, I do teach actually. Well, yes, you, but somebody else in the same kind of position, you get the idea. I'm just kind of covering my own ass right about now. And we need to get out of here because I've got a couple of things I got to put into the show notes. But yeah, sleep is fast approaching. So with that, you all have yourselves a good week. Please stay safe. I know we're getting close to the end of the summer, so remember, there are a lot of school districts that are starting up. Some already have. Don't do anything stupid with a school bus. Please. Please. We'll see you all again next week.
And don't push any of your friends off bridges.
Unless they richly deserve it. Until the next time, as always, I wish you all the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well. And my lady, Matane Fujin, I love you. I miss you. He's going to be 16 this week. Dream of that. Till the next time we get together, everybody, as always, good night.